Good afternoon, ladies and gentlemen. A brief presentation on creating a literate environment by Ms. Salini Joshi. I request Ms. Salini to present her presentation.
Thank you, Dr. Jha. The course unit that we worked on writing for adults is divided into two parts. And it includes not just skills related to how one should write for neo-literate and semi-literate adults, but it also includes a lot of information on conceptual issues and exercises on conceptual issues. Because we feel that writing itself is a skill which needs to be developed, but in addition to that, the perspective with which we write is also equally important. So while writing for neo-literate and semi-literate adults, we have talked about issues of gender and issues of language as well. So why are we talking about writing for adults? Because all of us have been doing that. Looking at some statistics here, there are about 781 million adults who lack minimum literacy rates. And governments must focus on building literate environments. There's a lot of talk about creation of literate environment, and this is a term which has been introduced by UNESCO and was also included in the Global Monitoring Report last year. So when we talk about literate environments, it's very important to have reading material which will sustain that literate environment. Also, the National Readership Survey, which is a survey which is conducted every year in India, shows that there are so many million people, almost 359 million people, who read and understand at least one language, but do not read any publication. And affordability is not the only constraint. So obviously there are other reasons, which may be to do with access, which may be to do with content, etc. In the 11th five-year plan document also, there is mention of the need for reading materials for neo-literates. The document says that there is a dearth of reading materials and there are 120 million neo-literate readers who do not access any reading material. And in order to provide reading material to them, we need people with specialized skills who can create this reading material. And therefore, we have tried to address these issues in the course unit. So, what are the needs of adult learners? Before we start talking about what are the practical skills required or what are the conceptual issues, it's important to talk about the needs. Firstly, there is limited availability of reading material. We know that a lot of neo-literate and semi-literate adults live in rural areas and urban slums where reading material is difficult to access. Secondly, the content of reading material also does not always include topics that interest these readers because they are adult readers. And the language of a lot of newspapers and magazines that are available is formal and difficult. And we know that people with fragile levels of literacy find it very difficult to read this material. And finally, gender is represented in simplistic or stereotypical manner in a lot of published manner. So therefore, there is a need to make available material that is interesting, that is informative, and also written simply and informed by a gender perspective. There are libraries in rural areas and also in urban slums, but there are very few libraries that cater to the needs of newly literate and semi-literate readers. And there are a lot of books that are available for children but not for adult learners. Also, libraries are spaces which are accessible to men. Very few women in rural areas visit libraries, and there are few efforts made to encourage a culture of reading among adults. So there is also a need to develop a reading culture. In this situation, what is the requirement? We have seen there is an absence of reading material. So for people like us, for adult educators, it is extremely important to provide informative and interesting reading material to this category of readers. When we worked on the course, we felt that it was important for adult educators to firstly understand the needs of newly literate adults, also to develop an understanding of the principles of writing for adult readers. So whether it is understanding gender, whether it's understanding issues of language or other issues which we feel are important in any reading material, it is important for those writing this material to develop an understanding, a perspective on these issues. Then, of course, practical skills, how to write simply, how to communicate your thoughts, ideas, information in a creative, interesting manner. One more thing which we feel is important when writing for adults is to understand the importance of decentralized material which is created in a participatory manner, which includes learners in the creation of material which is not created by adult learners like us, but by members of the community, people who are semi-literate, neo-literate themselves. So that is also an important part of material creation. And finally, understanding the need for a literate environment and also the present situation. How do we construct the newly literate adult? And I work with Nirantar, which is a resource group that works on gender and education. And we have worked with many organizations in grassroots areas. And as a trainer, I have conducted this activity with several adult educators, facilitators, etc. And it's a very simple activity and is very effective. So I'd just like to take you through the activity. The first part of the activity asks the adult educator, what according to you is the kind of material that neo-literate and semi-literate adults like to read? Make a list of all such material. So in most cases when we have conducted this activity, people have said that neo-literate readers, neo-literate adults like to read information on health, on population control, on vaccination, on cleanliness, on social issues, etc. The second part of the activity asks the